We come tonight, as I said, to celebrate these people who have come to be with us, and I had their names all pulled up here. You'll have to give me another second here. They're going to speak to us. I haven't told them any of this yet. So see, that's what an MC gets to do, is surprise the speakers that follow. But I'm going to ask each one of them, as they speak, one at a time, that they would in turn be seated in one of these chairs up here. There's 6 chairs. And after they all speak, then we're going to take some time to discuss some questions. These are not intended to be questions to attack anyone. These are to be questions to use what we call vetting people, trying to understand where they really stand and what they stand for. And we pray that God would protect them in their speech and reveal honestly to us who they are and what they stand for. And we want them to make decisions quietly in our own homes about who we want to have representing us. So tonight, we have, and I'll have them come in this order if you don't mind. No special order except the way that they appeared on our graphic that we sent out. Dr. James Taylor, I became very impressed with him as he came and I heard him speak, and I thought, man, this guy's really amazing. So he's come here tonight. And James, can you come over in front of this microphone and speak, because this is going to be necessary. You speak, and then when you're done, you can have a seat right there. Okay?
It is an honor to be here. Thank you guys very much. There, is that better? Okay, it is an honor to be here. I thank you guys. What I was planning on talking about, someone said, you might want to share what you shared at the city elders meeting last time. And I said, okay. But I want to just tell you a little bit about me in this process. I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to leave right now. Okay? Because since I have become second in the election, I have discovered things about me that I did not know. I did not know that I was a white Christian nationalist.
Welcome to the club.
Hey, that one throws me for a loop, I did not know that I was going to shut down all the rural schools in the state of Oklahoma. I teach at a rural school. You do not get any more rural than Little Axe High School. We have a grocery store. We have a Sonic. We have a fire department, we have a Native American hospital, and we have a casino and the schools. We got 1,300 students. We do not have a town. You do not get any more rural than that, so that's a lie. I was told that I'm going to be shutting down all the 4-H programs. That's a lie. I've been told that I'm going to get rid of all the future farmers of America. That's a lie. All these things are lies. These are coming from a group that's called Oklahoma Advocates. There may be some of them here tonight because they've been following us around, and usually you can tell by their questions who they are. But they have been doing this, and they're pushing this type of stuff. But the most recent that they did, which is most disturbing, is I am also a pastor. And last week they came to our church, towards the end of church, and we have a secure lock on our gate for our playground that the kids can't open, but the parents can. And this group came in, and they had a lady that was there trying to she opened the gate, came into the property, opened the gate, and was taking pictures. We see her out the window. We go out there, and she leaves, and she starts posting. And so apparently I'm also the leader of a cult now. But here's the thing that concerns us. I don't care what you say about me, but leave our kids out. My kids and other kids are out there. So now we have got the sheriff department that's making extra runs during that time to make sure that nothing else happens. But that's the kind of stuff that's going on with things. But that's all, that stuff is just bad. But I'm just going to tell you a little bit. I just want to brag on God and just show you. And I'm just going to tell you, usually when I talk about what God is doing, I don't make it all the way through without getting too emotional. So I'm going to try my best. We got into this race late. I did not want to be superintendent of schools. Had no desire to do that, had no intentions of running. I was asked in January of last year, and I kept saying no. Someone said, okay, JT, you're a preacher. Why don't you at least pray about it? I said, okay, I'll pray about it. Now, I did pray about it, but to me, I'm like Moses in the wilderness. If God doesn't say move, we ain't doing diddly squat. And I interpreted the silence as I don't have to do anything. So I was pretty happy with that I didn't have to do anything. Well, in February of this year, that's why I was so late, one of my friends named Ben, he was a GOP leader out there in that county, and he calls me up out the clear blue and says, "Hey, JT, I think you ought to run for state superintendent of schools." And I said, "Hey, Ben, how's the weather out there? You doing okay?" I just changed the subject, and I go home. Now, Ben redirected it, of course, and we just talked. I said, "Well, okay, Ben, I'm praying about it. We'll see." I go home, I talk to my wife. My wife is a very godly lady, and she loves the Lord and very prayer warrior. And she says, I tell her, I say, "Hey, honey," and she knows Ben. I said, "Honey, Ben out the clear blue just asked me to run for state superintendent." My wife says these words, "Well, I guess I ought to tell you what I did." And I'm like, "What did you do?" And she says, "I laid out a fleece." Now, for those of you who have a biblical worldview, you know that Gideon laid out the fleece not to determine what God's will was, but was to confirm God's will. That's what he was doing. So I said, "Well, what fleece did you lay out?" She says, "I asked God that if you're supposed to run for superintendent, that he would have 3 people ask you to run for superintendent all on the same day." I said, "Oh, okay." Kid you not. 30 minutes after that, I go to the bank to make a deposit. While I'm there, my banker, his name is actually Ben also. But I ran against Tom Cole, District 4, for Congress. And so he had voted for me, and one day he'd asked me to sign his yard sign. He still had it. And I said, "Sign your yard sign. That doesn't do." He said, "No, I want it." I said, "Okay." I said, "Now this and $10 to get you a cup of coffee at McDonald's, okay?" And so anyway, he out the clear blue, he says, "JT, I really think that the best place for you would be the superintendent of schools." And I said, "Really?" So I just kind of like, okay, that's 2. Then my wife says it.
Turn off in X seconds. Press any button to cancel.
Is that the way she talks?
I would love to be able to press button, but I can't. And so my wife says it, and I said, "That's 3, but God, that doesn't count because she wants me to run anyway." By the end of the day, there was 5. So I ended up counting my wife as one of the 5. So there was 5 people who had asked me to run. So I said, okay. So I ended up getting into this race late in there. And let me just tell you how God operated. All of the conventional wisdom says we should never have been where we were. We had no money. Now, we spent a little over $7,000 for a statewide race. Now, let's put that in perspective. The gubernatorial race, they spent $70 million. And that's not a typo. $70 million. Okay? 70 million. We spent a little over 7,000. We had 700 signs. That's all we had. You've seen 700 signs from one candidate on one corner. That's all we had. But here's what we did. We had prayer. We had God working with us. And we prayed, "God, we know you know how to multiply. Your word tells us that you will increase things 10-fold, 20-fold, 50-fold, 100-fold. Lord, we don't want 100-fold. We want 1,000-fold. We want you to increase 1,000-fold because we just did not have 700 signs across the great state of Oklahoma is not very many signs. We did not even get to go door knocking. When we ran for Cole, we knocked on thousands and thousands of doors, but we didn't get to go door knocking because we didn't have enough money to really do that. We have the money now. We got the app, but we didn't have it then. It was like $1,200. So we had to make a decision. What are we going to do? Because there's no way we could knock all the doors. There's just not a way. So we decided to get signs. That's how we ended up with 700. And so we used that money for the signs. So we did not have knocking any doors. We did not have a Facebook presence. We had a little tiny one, but we didn't even have an X presence. We have all that stuff now. What happened was when I ran for Cole, against Cole, my wife would go with me. And so whenever I'd finish, she would take pictures and then I would post. Well, because of our son, we have a special needs son that we have adopted. We got him when they were 1 and 2, he and his sister. They're 7 and 8 now, and he's 7. He's a special needs. He has autism level 3. So he can only handle. We used to try to take him, and about 20 minutes, it was all over. And it just wasn't going to work. And so she couldn't go with me anymore. So so I'd go speak, but I had no pictures to report on. So we had no Facebook presence. We had zero X presence. We didn't have money because part of the money to get the walk list included the money to be able to get access to texting messages. So we didn't even get the text message. All we had was God, and we just relied upon him. So long story short, we come to election night. We were completely dismissed by the media. They thought we were not even worth considering. They sent News Channel 9 in Oklahoma City, sent a crew to Adam Pugh's watch party. Adam finished 5th. Okay? Now, I'm saying they were expecting him to win. They really expected him to win. They never even bothered with calling us and asking us if we were even going to have one. Seriously. They never even bothered to call us. And so we go through, we're at home now at about 10:30. It's clear that we're going to be number 2 and we're going to be in the runoff. There's about 5% of the vote that's not in, but it's not enough that's going to change the outcome. We get a phone call from a reporter, and it's clear that she did not expect us to be there either, because her first question was, how in the world did you do this? My answer to her was, ma'am, this was the hand of God. God orchestrated this to take place. I guess she didn't get the message because she says, I don't understand. You spent a little over $7,000 and one of your opponents spent over $200,000 and lost. How did this happen? I said, ma'am, you're not listening. This was the hand of God. God orchestrated this. I said, ma'am, you in the media, you look at 2 things and you determine from that whether a person, your word, is viable. You look at how much money they've taken in, and you look at how many people have donated to their cause, and from those 2 statistics, you determine if they are viable. You never look at 2 things that happens. You never look at the grassroots, which was highly activated, and thank you for voting for me, those who did. But you also never consider prayer to God. Those 2 things. Well, most of that did not get in the article, but that is the story of our win. The first place we went to on Thursday after the election was Ponca City. Now, we did something the night before the election. We knew that we'd done all that we could. And we said, God, we have done everything that we could to help to be the candidate for this race. But we're asking you to do one last thing for us. We said, God, I'm sorry, I'm about to lose it here. Don't want to, but I'm going to try. We said, God, here's what we're asking tonight. Tomorrow, when people go into the voting booth, we're asking you, God, that when they go in and they want to vote for one candidate, that something will tell them that you will inspire them to say no and vote for James Taylor. We get to Ponca City on Thursday. After the presentation, we got this on tape. One of the men raised his hands and said, hey, this is not a question, but this is a statement. I said, okay, what is it? He says, I went in there to vote for Adam Pugh. But when I was getting ready to vote, something told me, no, vote for James Taylor. At the end of the night, 2 people, another one came up and said, I had the same experience. I was going to vote for Tony Hasselbeck, and they said, no, vote for James Taylor. Another one said, I was going to vote for John Cox, but no, vote for James Taylor. I find out in Enid, there was an epidemic of that in Enid. Seriously. I don't know how many people did that, but I thank God that those who did that, because that was the hand of God. People don't understand it. Let me tell you what God did Sunday, because God ain't done yet. He's still working. My wife and I are on our way to church, and we have, our situation has changed because it's different. And, we're going to ask for your money too. We do asking for money, preachers asking for money. And so I'm going to ask for your money as well. But we got folks that are helping us out with this thing. And on the 25th of this month, we had a bill that's going to be due for $2,000. We're in the car talking about this. And just showing you how God works. I said, honey, she asked me, how much do we need to get? I said, it's $2,000. So we need to raise $2,000 by the 25th. And she said, well, let's just pray. So we prayed while we're going into church. Kid you not. 50 minutes later, a man comes up to us, kid you not, hands me an envelope. I fold up the envelope and put it in my pocket. We go home and get ready to eat. And my wife says, well, what was the envelope? I said, I don't know. And I open it up. You know how much money it was? $2,000. I'm telling you, God is up to something. God is moving. God is doing something right now, as the song says. And we are trying to do is be faithful to that and to honor what he's wanting us to do, because we have some things we want to do at school. I know my time is almost up, but I'm just going to say real quickly, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that our teachers are prepared and ready to teach, that they have all the things that they need, that they are supported, that they are encouraged to be able to do the things that they can do. I'm also about parental empowerment. I believe our parents need to be involved in the school. Listen, no parent should be ignored or considered an obstacle because they ask one simple question: what are you teaching my child? Parents have a right to know, they have a right to be told to be there, and they have a right to choose. And so we're going to be pushing that. Another thing is that I believe in fiscal responsibility. I believe that we need to me, the question is, whatever program we have, is it helping the kids to learn to read and to do math and be successful in that? If the answer is no, then it needs to be cut, and that money redirected to the classroom to get those things done. Those are some of the things that I believe that we need to make sure that we have happen in our schools. And fiscal responsibility, let me just say this. I have demonstrated in this election fiscal responsibility. I have demonstrated, literally, I have demonstrated how to take a nickel and make it look like a dollar. Okay? I have demonstrated that. And so I plan to do that same type of fiscal responsibility at Lincoln Boulevard when we get into that in January. So I guess we'll just ask questions afterwards? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just want to say thank you for listening. You can go to my website, Taylor number 4, OK.org, taylorforok.org. There you can get signs. We have signs back here. There you can volunteer. There you can make donations, and we do love for those things to happen. And so thank you for your time. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. Sherry. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And he is a true pastor. You know, if he takes his watch off during a sermon, you'll ask, what does that mean? It means nothing. Thank you. Next is Marty Quinn. Marty, come on up. And I failed to announce that I thought everyone knew this, that Dr. Taylor's running for school superintendent for the state, and Marty's running for insurance commissioner. So, Marty, if you can do this in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, that'll be great.
I could have gave you a cell phone call and done that. I've got me some notes, folks. We probably won't get another chance. I've said this to the last couple of groups that we've talked to, because a lot of stuff out there, and I think it's extremely important that some of the things about our campaign that you leave here knowing as much about it as you can. And so that's, sorry.
Tighten that up on the bottom.
This?
Yeah, tighten that up. There you go. That may be loose. Okay.
There we go. So we want to make sure that we did. What is the time frame? What we got?
Oh, about 5 minutes. Yeah, hour and 5 minutes.
Well, y'all better put it on fast forward then. When you turn up those hearing aids.
Take 10.
So you can hear real fast.
10 minutes.
The race is about y'all.
Yeah.
when I first started out, I was traveling out west trying to cover all of Oklahoma, not just Tulsa and Oklahoma City. I wanted to see everybody's needs, not just some of them's needs. And it's extremely important for people to know that when we shake their hands or hug their necks, that we're very interested in what's going on with them. The affordability was the number one thing that you had heard everybody talk about. Well, what I didn't realize was how many people were having consumer protection issues. And a lot of companies, too many companies. I've been in the business for 40 years or so. Very proud to have been in that industry. But the reality is the environment that we're in right now is there's people that are taking advantage of people. And that shouldn't happen. The commissioner's office has the ability to hold those companies accountable, and that's our intent. But to be able to do that, we have to be there. You have an opportunity to vote for somebody that has twice as much insurance experience as an agent, as a manager, worked in 3 different states. Normally, outside the political environment, those are resume builders. When you work in Arkansas and Louisville, Kentucky, and Lexington, Kentucky, and Claremore, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma City, and all over the state, those are usually really good things. But in this particular race, they want to criticize you because you didn't spend your entire life in Oklahoma. Well, why don't they take the same approach when they're talking about hiring a superintendent or hiring a coach or hiring an engineer or hiring whatever? You usually want the best person for the job. And that's why that we need to be your next insurance commissioner. So consumer protection, there's 2 things that we've got to accomplish. We've got to lower your rates, and there's ways that we can do that. The first way that I want you to remember is right opposite of where my opponent is. And my opponent, to the best of my knowledge, is a good guy. But the people that are controlling that campaign, not so much. When you throw in over $700,000 against me, there's reasons that you're doing that. Now, especially with an inexperienced individual, that political pressure gets there. On the other hand, even if I had the $700,000, which I don't, but even if I did, what I can prove to you is that I've faced those monsters in the past. The wind industry, my campaign would have still had tens of thousands of dollars in it had I bought into the wind industry. Instead of it, I stood up against 42 lobbyists along with good people like Mike Mazie. But I fought it for a long, long time. There was times that I was supported of the oil and gas industry. It's a vital a part of our economy. But sometimes they ask a little bit too much, and it takes advantage of you. And in those times, I stood up against the oil and gas industry. But one of the things, and I won't name the company, but they all have these measuring sticks to basically put pressure on you to say, well, you really do us a good job. You really understand our needs. So they give away these little medallion type deals. So I call them desk weights or whatever. And it says 100% club. And what that meant, on all those issues, you voted 100% with them all the time. Name me an industry, name me a person that is right 100% of the time. So when it comes to some of those issues, instead of being the pat on the back and the good old boy, I would stand up against those issues. Well, you lost your 100% club. You don't get to walk in my office and see a big old row of 100% clubs. Why? Because you were more important. There were some of those issues that were not in your best interest. And that's standing up against some of the industry. What I'm trying to say is you have an opportunity of a proven record, not a perfect record. You have an example of a record that you can go see. First Amendment, yeah, he's good on that. Second Amendment, he's good on that. Moral issues, he's good on that. Taxes, he's good on that. A broad spectrum of 12 years, I've got a conservative record. And it can be proven over and over again. My opponent, on the other hand, all they can do is make promises. In this last legislative session, there was multiple bills that would have changed some of the things in the, I'll call it legal system because I don't have time to explain to you on what tort reform is, but tort reform is what was in it. They're trying, anytime you're reforming the tort laws in a state, you're usually reducing the amount you can sue for or whether you can sue. You take those advantages away, there's less expenses involved in that. A prime example is this. USAA, that's one company out of the entire state of Florida. One company reduced its rates, or they reduced their rates, but they sent back almost $1 billion, almost $1 billion to its members. Why did they do that? Because in 2024 and 2025, when that went into effect, they reduced their legal expenses. They reduced their legal expenses from $3.4 billion to $117 million. You want to ask me how we can reduce your homeowners rates? How we can reduce your auto rates? Right there's where we start. And that's just one. I could go on with that. The difference is that my opponent, one of the representatives this past year who's been in control of the money, I'll just say that's been in control of the money the last several years, took out every piece of tort reform in every insurance bill there. That person wrote a $2,500 check to my opponent. That was just one check. When 60-something% on the last report, when 60-something% of your resources are coming from trial attorneys, who are you going to have to guard against? That's what we're facing. Now, it doesn't mean that he's a bad individual. I'm just telling you, when there's 700,000 plus going against me, and a lot of that is coming from, why would the Oklahoma State Medical Association, why would they put in $83,000 just in the first quarter? I haven't seen the reports of what they put in the second quarter. Why would they put that in? I'll tell you why. They have fought the last couple of years for a piece of legislation that allows third-party lawsuits. I wonder who's going to benefit from third-party lawsuits. It's not you. It's not the broad spectrum of the people that are going to go out and vote on August the 25th. Your best chance of having somebody that I will work with anybody. If you remember the last time I was here, my approach was this. You got corporations, you got consumers, and you got the legal system in the middle. I'm going to fight for all three. But what I'm going to fight against is when that pendulum swings too far in one direction or the other. If it's the legal system that has the statute stacked up against you and I, and we're having to, because the first check, when we pay out a $2 million settlement on a $30,000 roof claim, that was really good for one person. But everybody else in here had to pay for that. The company that has $1 billion in reserves so that when something bad really happens, that they've got the money that they can pay for those big claims, they're going to write that first check. They're going to write that $2 million check. They're going to write thousands of those $2 million checks. But the last check is written by you. And you want to ask me how come our rates keep going up? Those are the things that we're fighting against. Consumer protection, lower rates, making sure that if a company makes a promise that we hold them accountable. We can do that through market conduct surveys. This is one of the things you've got to start believing in. Because from day one that we get in office, we're going to go to every corner of the state and basically, for lack of better words, advertise that if you're having issues with an adjuster or with a company, the first call you make is 1-800-522-0071. Why is that? If we never hear that a company is mistreating you before it's too late, I can't do a market conduct survey. But if you give me hundreds of examples that this is what they're doing, and we check those out, and we report those to the company, and we say, you know, we looked at this, we got 150 examples. and 60 of those are from the same adjuster. Or we looked at 150 of them, and 120 of them is you delaying payment over and over and over. Why is that? So what we're going to do in our market conduct survey, we want 500 more examples of your claims. And guess who pays for that? They do. We're going to hold them accountable. We're going to hold them accountable because I know that we, based off of the experiences and legislatively and being in the industry as long, we're going to hold them accountable. The actuarial side of things, right now, up until July 1 of next year, any rate increase has to go into effect. So XYZ company can send the commissioner a note and say, on July 1, our rates are going up 22%, and the commissioner just has to waive. This year, he can object. In that first 30-day period of time, he can object. And then we have 60 days to approve, to actuarially combat that. So Glenn is already in the process of hiring additional actuaries. Those are not cheap, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I do want to have that actuary study done as fast as possible to where that we can say, justify your homework, and if you can't, we're not going to approve the rate increase. Now, that's making it sound a little bit too simple, but those are things that we're going to be able to at least slow down the rate increase by objecting to it, and they're going to see that we're watching. They're going to see that we're studying it. They're going to make sure that we're checking their homework. So I don't think that they'll be as eager. How much time? Okay, I'm okay. Here's the other thing. All of us have our centers of influence. All of us have our buddies and friends and all those type of things. But when you get ready to stick your neck out there on the chopping block and you got to have somebody to come to your rescue, I want y'all to go to our Facebook page. And we've got a ton of good people from all walks of life that have stuck their neck out on the chopping block to let you know what type of individual that they think that we are, that they believe in the skills and the sets that we have to do the job. And go look at that and then tell me, do you want to take a chance on someone that all they can do is make promises? Because ours is in writing over a 12-year period of time. In this community, we spent about 28 years in this community. So there's plenty of evidence there that you can actually look and see. The last thing that I'll say about endorsements is myself and my opponent made it to the runoff, but there were two other people that did not make it to the runoff. One of those was Chris Meredith. I ask you to go to my Facebook page and look at the letter, the endorsement letter that he wrote. The type of campaign that we ran, what he viewed me as an opponent. And just in case, some of you are wicked and got a warped mind and think that I've already promised a job, no jobs. No jobs have been promised. And I've talked a lot about that because the reality on that is I don't even know where there's jobs available. I've been running a campaign. Okay, those are the realities. Chris, and you could call him up right now. I asked him if he thought that we had ran the type of race that he could support. He knew where I stood on a lot of the issues. He stood on those same issues. And please go look at the Facebook post, either on mine or on his, and get a feel for what somebody is willing to do for you. So, last thing is this. The first race, 1 out of 4 people voted. That's horrible. 1 out of 4. In the greatest country in the world, the one with the most freedom in all of the world. We can pretty much go any place under the sun that we want to. We can say what we want to, even when it shouldn't be something that we say. We can worship any time that we want to. And all of those are just like, oh, I just don't, whatever it is. 1 out of 4. You know what's even worse than that? We'll be lucky if we get 50% of that to show up on August the 12th.
Yeah, that's right.
So what I need from each one of you is, if you're interested in supporting us, I need you to talk to your friends and your family and your neighbors and tell them about your friend Marty Quinn, the most experienced, whatever sales pitch that you want to give them. Call me. I'll give them one. Be less than what I'm taking right now. But if we get the grassroots out, we're going to win that race. And why is that? Because that group is proven over and over and over. They always show up. We just need more of them to show up. So with that, thank you very much for all your efforts and time. Let's go to work. Win with Quinn.
Thanks, Marty. Thank you, Marty. That's great. Before we go any further, I want to remind all of you tonight that we've had some things happening in Rogers County that we want to draw attention to real fast before we go on. We've had lots of petitions flying around, but we've got one very important one right here now in front of us, and it's here tonight. The first night it's available to be signed, and that's for the grand jury. The grand jury is something that has been promised to us through the Constitution that our framers gave us. When government gets out of control, when courts get out of control, when they get off track, we have a grand jury that we can put people together, and they have all the power in the world to operate separate from that and find the truth and get to the bottom of things. So I want to remind you, you should sign that tonight if you're a member of Rogers County, not just Claremore, anywhere in Rogers County that's covering all of the smelter, that's covering the data centers. That's something that you need to sign and say, let's put this idea and these decisions back in the hands of the people to vote on, rather than putting it in a few hands that they can make money on themselves and everyone else gets left out. Understood? Yes. All right. I've lost my place here. I think Mr. Brashears is next.
I thought I was next.
You're next again. Yeah, you like to make me go through a lot of punishment, don't you? Well, what we want to do, we've got our county commissioners that are running here, both of them here tonight. And Mr. Brashears, are you here? Can you come on up? There you are.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Kenny Brashears. I'm running for Rogers County Commissioner. I'll keep it pretty short and sweet. We've already been through one election. I've got a lot of stuff out on Facebook, and I figure you guys want to get to the questions more than anything else. But I want to talk a little bit about my family because I think family is important, and I think that a lot of things that you can get answered is from knowing about my family, because you can say, well, he's been married 20 years, he's got 6 kids. Is that going to go along with what's good for this community? So I think that'll be easy for you to answer that. So there's my wife over there, Camden. We've been married 20 years. We do have 6 kids together. I've been a Rogers County resident my whole life. Right out of high school, I went to work for the city at Claremore Street Department. I went to work after that at Rogers County District 3. That's when I decided I wanted to run for county commissioner. So this has been something I've wanted to do for 20 years now. I just haven't been in an opportunity where I thought that I was ready to do it. Because it really, when you go into being a public servant, you need to be able to go all in for that. It don't need to be a job. It needs to be something that you're passionate about and something you want to do. So I've done things over the years to hopefully get myself in a position to be ready to take this role if elected by everybody. The last 16 years I worked at CF Industries, and it's in Verdigris. I've been able to do a lot of things in my role there to help better prepare me. I've dealt with a lot of money, and I've been able to manage several people and do things like that. I sit on a few boards, and I want to talk about a couple of them because I sit on the EHS advisory board at CF, and that's Environmental Health and Safety Advisory Board. We review policies, procedures, state, federal, and local, and we have best practice meetings and anything. We want to make sure we're in compliance with everything, and that board's responsible for that. Something that I would like to see for Rogers County. I haven't told this yet to anybody, so this is first here. I would like to see Rogers County come up with something like that, like a Rogers County Emergency or a EHS Advisory Board, Environmental Health and Safety. And I'd like to see it made up of people in Rogers County, and I want them to review all the state and federal laws to make sure we're in compliance at the minimum, and I want to make sure Rogers County hopefully sets the standard as far as emissions for your ground, your water, and stuff like that. So that is something that I've been wanting to talk about and do, and that's really all I got, and we can ask more questions. I'm done.
Thanks. Next is Teddy Nolan. I always recognize that cowboy hat. Let's put this on you here.
Okay. Hi, my name is Teddy Squeak Nolan. Can you hear me? Okay. I started my career in public service 30 years ago. I actually started working for the Recreation and Tourism Department. I'd done that for several years, and then I transitioned to Rogers County District 1 in 1999. I started there mowing the grass, and then I worked my way into bridge foreman. I was there for almost 14 years as bridge foreman. We built 9 major structures. In that time frame, we also worked over 9 FEMA disasters, snowstorms, floods, everything from you can imagine that can happen in a county I've done. So I've done everything from clean the ditches to run big crews. I worked into the road foreman later on. That's where I worked with big budgets. I've done projects for $3 million down to $50. So I've done a little bit of everything in that side of it. I run the crews. I've managed day-to-day work. We budgeted for everybody's salaries, hiring and firing, whatever comes and goes with all that equipment. I've done this a long time. It's an extreme passion for me. After that, I actually left the county and went to work for the city of Claremore. In that time frame, I've also worked for ODOT as a highway inspector. This has been a tough race, and Kenny can contribute to that. There's been a lot to this one. It's been really heated and hot, and everybody's everywhere all over it. But I think me and him both are just here to try to do better for Rogers County. That's what we want. There's a ton of questions that we get asked that we don't know the answers to. We don't. We're not politicians. Both of us are workers, period. And the questions, I went to GOP last week and they hammered me. And stuff that I have no idea what they were even talking about. So I do ask y'all, please try to refrain to stuff that we know about. We'll learn them things, whoever it is. It's a learning basis. None of us know it. Nobody knows it whenever you go into office like this. So we're both smart people. Really that's it. I have a great passion for Rogers County. I've been here, I've lived in Rogers County since 1907, but I grew up in Alloway, which is a mile outside of Rogers County. So I was in Rogers County. I'm 4th generation, Cherokee and Delaware tribe member. That's just a little bit about me. I think with the experience I've had, it's with 30 years of experience that I had, it's just easier for me to go in from day one and take over and never have a holdup or a fault, never have a break in the service and how it's all run. I know basically the whole entire system except for inside the courthouse, and none of us know then what's inside the courthouse. You have to learn it as you go. So that's all I got, and y'all can ask me questions later.
Thanks, Ted.
You bet.
Let me get this mic. Oh, yeah. And for the sake of time, the next 2 are going to be for District Number 9 in the House, and we're going to ask Crystal Campbell if she will come tonight and talk to us. And I'll let you put that on your person and stand behind this mic after you do.
All right.
Just make sure this is...
I'm used to yelling at children, so.
Okay, that's good.
As he said, my name is Crystal Campbell. That is the one thing that I have not done well over the last 4 years is introduce myself, because I get up there and I get excited to talk to people. The number one thing, first of all, I'm really thankful for everybody that has signed up to run. I'm on usually the other side. I've worked for Senator Mullen for the last 4.5 years. I never did campaign stuff. My job was to get out and help people. And on this side of it, there's a great appreciation for sticking your neck out there, as it's been alluded to. And I hope and pray to God that everybody that watches over my children can pray just like this. That's part of the reason my children are in a Christian school. My faith is the very first thing that I hope people meet about me. You can ask my family. They prefer me to get up and do my Jesus time. They know don't talk to me until I've had my Jesus time. Mama's a nice person when she talks and has her Jesus time. But it is something that I have relied on heavily for the last 4.5 years. My job was get embedded. I covered 14 counties. I got to know a lot of people. Part of what came to me were difficult and impossible issues. And there's one thing I know that is not impossible when you take things to God. So I did a lot of that. And there were things that would come up and I knew there was no way, and it wasn't in my jurisdiction, there was no way I could handle it. And they would call me by the end of the day and they said, I don't know what you did, but it got taken care of today. I've waited 18 months. Happened numerous times, and it is because of prayer. That is the one thing that I hope that you know about me, is that my faith, no matter what happens at the end of this, I'm still going to be anchored in that. It has not failed me. It has never failed me. God goes before me wherever I go, and I stand on that in every single day. I guarantee you I will probably let somebody down. I tell my family this all the time. I'm human. You will probably not agree with something that I say at some point in time. If I make everybody in here happy, I'm not being a very good representation, because you can't make everybody happy. I have tried desperately to get 7 people to agree on where we go out to eat, and nobody, not a single time have I made that able to happen, because they all have a different palate. Everybody has a different thing that they like. But I will promise this. I don't make promises I can't keep. I learned that with kids, and I learned that in this job. Never make a promise that you can't keep. The second thing is, the one thing I can promise is that I will always listen, I will always be available, and that I will do my absolute best and work the hardest I possibly can for you. I have tried that for the last 4.5 years. It still hasn't failed me. The other thing you will hear a lot about is my endorsements. The reason why I like my endorsements is because they're not blanket. I just like her. She's my person. Mark LePac has endorsed me. He's the person that has held the seat. I have other endorsements from those in the state legislature, from other people that I've helped, everybody from veterans to different city leaders. The reason why is because I showed up. I had those people for Representative LePac. The reason why he endorsed me is that he would send out, so as a state legislature, when you got somebody that would come in and say, hey, listen, I've got this issue, Social Security, veterans, disability, whatever the topic was, he would send it to Mullen, Langford, and Burkeen's office. I raced to make sure it got to me first, because I knew I could control my outcome. I knew that I could take it to my caseworker. I knew I could follow up until that problem got solved. So he endorsed me because I got to the problems quick, and it made him look really good. So that's the reason why that constituent services is a big deal to the state legislature. You want to make sure that you take care of the people wherever they are. If it's a state issue, a federal issue, whatever it is. I have a great knowledge of both. The one thing I will tell you, that those LAs, the legislative assistants that up there, I had people that I was working with on the western side of the state, the eastern side of the state, because they figured out if they called me, I'd get things done. I'm a farm girl. Farm girls know how to work. I've hauled hay, and up until a couple of years ago, I just turned 50. Up until a couple of years ago, I tried to outbuck the 18, 19-year-olds. Dadgummit, I did too. But I'm a worker. That's where it comes from, is my ag background. So I'm very protective of land. So when I see large solar farms, large wind farms, not a huge fan. I don't want to see our land used like that. But on the other side of that, I want to make sure that if we're not using, we need to make sure that we're using farmland for farms. Why are we not using it more? Why is it getting eaten up? I'm not a big fan of big farm, as in the great big huge farming operations, or big pharma. I think there's a big danger in both. There's a big danger in overreach of federal government. I am 100% for small government. Small government needs to be decided at the local level. That's where your voice gets louder. I think that you bringing up the petition is a great example of that. Your voice gets louder the smaller the government. You know what? You have to face the people when you go to the grocery store. And that is why I don't want the state government telling us what to do, what we can do with our land, how much cattle we can run on. And hey, a few years ago, they were trying that with FSA. They were trying to tell you how many cattle you could run on your land. These are all cases I've worked. I want to make Oklahoma self-sustainable, so we don't ride the tide of what's going on at the federal government. Biden did this, Trump did this, Biden did this. And so we've been riding this roller coaster, and it's hard on a government. Oklahoma became very reactionary instead of proactive, and we could take care of ourselves. That crosses a lot of areas there. So very small government, and the smaller we get, the better off we are, and the more vocal. You may not agree with all tactics, but let's just take a minute, and I'm thankful for the citizens of Rogers County because they've gotten engaged, and we need to stay engaged. It's easy to get deaf because you get used to everything, so I'm very grateful for those that have been engaged. I'm going to say this because it will come up inevitably by the end of the night. AI. We're mad at data. I have a ton of it on here. It's funny. I remember my first job was in a bank. I was 15 and I stayed late. I was working for my mom. My mom's here, my husband. I would stay up and I would do the checks. I'd do check imaging. And then you remember back in the day, you got your actual physical check back. Now you get a digital check, like you get a line, and then you have to go online and you look at it. I go to the doctor. I can go to a doctor in one city, go to a doctor in a different city, and he can tell me exactly what happened in the previous city. That's all stored in a data center somewhere in a cloud. We don't realize it, but it's been around for a long time. The caveat to this is AI. AI is dangerous. It can be very good, it can be very beneficial, and it can really help us. But AI, when I can't choose something, I can't tell the difference between what's fake and what's not. We have no guidelines. I spent an hour and a half this morning with people who are in the AI industry, asking them to send me legislation or legislative ideas, because we need some serious guardrails with AI in the state of Oklahoma. So that's one thing I'm really wanting to look at and take a hard look at. The other thing is infrastructure. Part of what we're facing here in Oklahoma is, remember a few years ago, we were going to have Panasonic was going to come in. We had all these people we needed to work for, so we were going to talk about it. We didn't have, what was the next thing? Oh, we don't have the people. We were going to bring all these people in. Oh, then we realized we don't have a place for all these people to live. Then what was the next thing? I went to the housing studies. I went to the workforce studies, then I went to the housing studies. And the next thing was infrastructure. At the time, it wasn't electric or energy infrastructure. It was water infrastructure. For Senator Mullen, he did congressionally directed spending, which is a line item very particular. If it's not exactly what's being spent for, it can be clawed back. I would say 7 or 8 of every 10 asks had to deal with water. That is either from the plant or cleaning it up at the treatment, the sewage treatment plant. Those are the two things. We cannot grow without water. I've been to a lot of Oklahoma Water Resource Board meetings, been heavily involved in a lot of that, spent a lot of time at county commissioners meetings. I know what infrastructure looks like, and I know if we're gonna grow, we better make sure we get our bones straight before we start adding a whole lot of meat to it, because otherwise we'll come back and we'll have a road that goes to nowhere. We have no idea what we're doing. So infrastructure is a really big deal for us as we continue to grow. And people have figured out we're a great place to live, and they want to bring their industry here because we're free, and we are one of the freest, because I want to say it's because we're one of the reddest states in the union. But they realize that our freedom is what makes us such a great place to come here. I will add one last thing because it is important to me. I have 5 children. We had 4. We split it. We're so democratic in our house. 2 look like me, 2 look like my husband, and just for funsies, we adopted number 5 to be our ginger spice. He's got red hair; it fits him to a T. So number 5 is our adopted baby. We brought him home from the hospital. I owe my pro-life stance to a Democrat when I was a freshman in high school. She told me I couldn't rely on my faith, and I had to defend it. Defend my pro-life stance. And so I did research. I love asking questions. Bring me the things that you don't agree with me on, and let's sit down and talk about it, because that's how I get better. Every perspective that I have that you bring to me and we can talk it out, I get better. And I love that. That's what I've done. I tell people, I have this analogy. If I have a plate broken in my kitchen and I have 5 people around it and I only listen to one perspective, that's not a very fair judgment of what happened in that plate getting broken. So I need all people to tell me, because then I get a really good idea of what's going on. But education is the difference maker. And he's exactly right. Empowering parents is where it all starts. If I have a parent that cares, you know what's going to happen to that kid? That kid's going to care. And I wish our parents, I wish we had our why back. If I had one thing to ask, we need to know why we educate. Do we send them just to go? That's what's expected. Are we sending them to be the next workforce? Why are we sending our kids to school? I guarantee you ask anybody out on a football field, after school practice, and they'll tell you exactly why they're spending that time out there on that football field. Because they want to win a championship. Have we told our kids, I need your brain? Because your brain might be the next thing that solves the next big issue we have. We need the other thing, technology. We have to really scale back. And I'm thankful that our state has scaled back. But if you look at anxiety rates of our children, there's a book called The Anxious Generation. Highly recommend, great book. But it explains what this next generation is facing. And a lot of it has to deal with technology. We were never meant to spend ages on electronics. I won't buy a book online. I want the paper. I want to feel it in my hands. I want to feel the way an ink pen writes. These are all things that are basic to our brain development. By the way, my degree, early childhood education, I was a kindergarten teacher. Not a better degree out there to deal with politicians than a kindergarten teacher. The only one to this date to ever disagree with me on that, and he kind of looked a little stunned, I don't know if he really disagreed, was Mark Wayne. And it was on our farewell call, and I told him that, and his wife thought it was brilliant. She goes, oh, she's right. That's exactly the perfect degree as a kindergarten teacher to deal with you. And so anyway, we touched on voter turnout. That is a really big deal. If you don't take anything, there's 2 things I really want you to take from this. Is one, I signed up to be a field rep because I love people. I had a heavy hand in doing jobs. My husband, he teased me. He was like, I would go to work and I realized people can't fire you when you volunteer. I volunteered really heavy before I got involved as a field rep. Dan DeLozier was very supportive, and he was out there saying, hey, you want to get something done, take it to this girl. I think it's just because I'm stubborn, and my husband would also agree with that. But the other thing is, people drive everything, and if the person taking an office isn't doing it because they love people, they're not in it for the right reasons. And I hope that at the end of the day, when I look at God and I die, I hope he says, well done, good and faithful servant, because you served people. I want to make sure that everything that I do, my fruit that you see from me, is because I spent every day in prayer solving issues and helping people with the things that they need help with. I've prayed at doors this year. I'm excited. I saw a lady at the Chick-fil-A parking lot the other day. I was like, how'd the test go? She goes, I haven't got it back. I said, okay, there's still time to pray. So those are things that mean a lot. The other thing is, I will listen. I have practiced listening, sometimes ad nauseum to a 9-year-old, but I have practiced listening. And my mom's laughing because she knows it's true. The kid can talk. But the greatest thing that God gave me is a heart for people and to love people. That is what we were created for. We were created a partnership. Genesis 1 is about partnership with God and what we can do on this earth, on heaven, on earth as it is in heaven. And it goes all the way, and because of Jesus and what he did, we're able to take that and partner again. And I hope that that's what my life legacy is a partnership with God, that I can make things happen here on earth as it is in heaven. So with that.
And now we have Scotty Stokes. Scotty, come on up. District 9 for representative there. Here, you want to put this? Let's put this on you.
I'll let you.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to unbutton this just right there, if I can. There we go. Your glasses may be.
Oh,
Yeah, talk behind that.
I thought you put it on my glasses. I was like, I might need those. All right. Anyway, yeah, my name's Scotty Stokes, and like he said, I'm running for State House District 9 also. And first, I want to thank Crystal and even Debbie Long. She's not here tonight, but through this campaign, through this whole process, it's been a very clean race. And I appreciate that. No negativities have come from either of our campaigns against each other. There's been some stuff from other individuals and some other groups that have kind of floated around, but I truly don't believe any of it originated from any of our campaigns. And I've talked to Debbie about that also. And so I just want to say thank you for that. And we got a month and a half or so to go. We're going to keep it up. But like I said, my name's Scotty Stokes. I'm a 32-year Tulsa firefighter, paramedic, and I'm the emergency management director for Rogers County. I've been doing that for 13 years, and I'm not that old. I actually did both jobs for 7 years at the same time, so some of that time overlaps. So I'm not that old to be able to do both those careers in tandem. But anyway. I have also started a summer camp years ago, 27 years ago, as a matter of fact, for children that suffered major burns and traumatic injuries. It's called the Oklahoma Firefighters Burn Camp. Excuse me. And that camp, we've had hundreds of children that have come through with major disfiguring injuries, debilitating injuries that have cause anything that causes them to be, one, either made fun of at school, people, other kids are cruel to each other. And we really saw a need in the fire service early on. We do a lot to prevent those burns. We do a lot to protect those kids from fires. But when it does happen, and it does, when these children do get injured, we weren't doing anything. We sent them off to we would show up to the fire, put the fire out, take care of them, package them up, get them to the hospital, paramedic, we work on them, we get them to the hospital, and then we're done. And it was like, there's got to be more to this. And so, like I said, 27 years ago, I came up with the Oklahoma Firefighters Burn Camp. We started bringing these kids in. I ran that camp for 20 years. It's 100% nonprofit, 100% volunteer organization. Nobody gets paid to be there. We provide scholarships for those kids now. We do all our own fundraising events, and we've sent kids to nursing school. We let them go to college or tech school, whatever they want to do to further their education in order to improve their lives. And because of that, for one, I was awarded Tulsa Firefighter of the Year twice, and in the history of Tulsa Fire Department, only one other firefighter has ever received that award twice in their career. And anyway, I kind of want to keep it short because I know you guys want to get to this, but I wanted to hit on the obvious things that I've knocked, I don't know how many thousands of doors. I know up to June 16th, I knocked over 4,000 doors personally myself. And I probably talked to several of you in this room at some point or time, knocking on your door. But the thing is, things changed kind of since February. When I started knocking doors in February, the hot topic was education. I mean, it was top of the block. It was the number one thing out there. It's still very important. It's still a question that I get. But then came data centers. And I was like, well, everybody loves Google and Prior. I don't, that's what I'm saying, that's what people I was hearing from. So I thought, and then I started hearing the negativities. I started hearing the things, the utilities and the water usage and the utility increases and the sound and the noise and the pollution that comes off of them and stuff. So I started doing some research and looking into that. And I've got 400 acres. I don't have 400 acres. There's 400 acres of open property behind my house, and I can tell you I do not want one back there. But I went out and knocked the doors of the people that butt up to that property, and I asked them, anybody in here live out in that area? Nobody. But I knocked a lot of the doors in that area to just find out, because I wanted to know what they thought. I can go to the meetings, I can go and listen to people discuss this, and that's great. I think we need to hear everybody's opinion, because they bring some people in that are true experts on that stuff. They've really studied it, they've really researched it, and they have some great information. But I wanted to hear from the people that lived out there. So early on, I went out there and knocked those doors and tried to talk to them, and got a hold of a lot of them. And they all had the basic same concerns. Only one of them was really irate, mad, but I had to explain to him, I'm not in there yet, so hold on. I'm working on getting there. I'm trying to find out what your issues are. But he settled down and we had a very nice conversation. But I will tell you that, as far as the data centers go, that's a touchy subject, because we all have our phones. We all have our computers and our cloud service, like she was talking about. We all have that. A lot of us use the AI stuff to help us write an email or help us write a letter a little bit better or whatever. But it is a dangerous situation. We've really got to, slow the roll on this. Getting so many data centers, you know what it reminds me of in the state of Oklahoma? It reminds me of the marijuana bill, the medical marijuana bill. The medical marijuana bill was passed, boom. You had 7,000 or 8,000 grow facilities in the state of Oklahoma that popped up. There were almost 1,000 grow facilities in Rogers County at one time at the peak. That invited in the cartel. That invited in foreign land ownership. That raised the price of land ownership or land purchasing. It caused a lot of issues. And then when they finally started getting a hold on it and started changing some of the laws on that, now you go drive out in these rural areas and you see broken down grow houses that are growing up, flapping in the wind, the plastic's flapping in the wind and stuff. What's going to happen with these data centers down the line? And that's one thing that really worries me about these data centers is what happens to them as technology improves and they shrink these things down to where you can fit them in a shipping container and put them in a Walmart parking lot and nobody would even know what it was. What happens when that technology improves to these huge facilities that are out there that are all falling down and falling apart, and who's going to pay to clean that up? There's got to be some things put in place to make sure that these companies have the money set aside in a bond or something set aside to be able to protect that whenever they do go out of business, go bankrupt, whatever, that they can clean that up, that money is there to clean that facility up and put that land back to use. Now let's talk, anybody here from Inola area? All right, let's talk smelter. Because at first the smelter, I was like, hey, we need aluminum. I know people in the manufacturing business and they do, they build airplane parts and they have to have the aluminum and I mean, they're, it's hard to come by it, sometimes. But I got to looking into the smelter, because I started getting a lot of questions. It's not in District 9. So I was like, I'm concerned. I want to know about it, but I'm more concerned right now about what's going on in District 9. That way I can talk to the people in District 9. But as I knocked doors, I started hearing more and more complaints about the smelter and people against that smelter. So I thought, I've got to do some research. So I started making some calls to some folks that I know in the Inola area and just asked them, hey, what's your thoughts? And as you would well expect, they were highly against it. I've got some good friends down there. But if you look, one of them sent me some research that they did. One of the local ranchers did some research on, this is where I got to put my glasses back on, but he did some research on smelter in Kentucky. And it was built several years ago, but he went out, him and his wife, his family owns almost 3,700 acres in the Inola area, in that general area. So he wanted to know what's going to happen to my property, what's going to happen with my, with my ground, with my dirt, with my cattle, with my hay. Self-proclaimed hay capital of the world. They're proud of their hay. They are. They sell that to a lot of racehorses, people that raise racehorses and stuff, and cattle, and it's a high dollar venture for them, and that's how they make their living. But they went out to Kentucky, and they took soil samples and grass samples. And I'm going to try to do this real quick, but they did soil samples from 2 miles northeast, 5 miles northeast, 2 miles south, 5 miles south, 5 miles north. That's the grass. So that's the soil. So they went 2 miles, 2 miles, and then went 5 miles, 5 miles. Kind of went with the prevailing winds of that area to see what was going on. If you read the report from Accurate Labs, it says that the fluoride concentrations in grass samples, hold on, let me fast forward here. Maximum tolerable dietary fluoride level for beef calves is 40 milligrams per kilogram dry weight. Okay, 40 milligrams, remember that number, 40 milligrams per kilogram. At the soil samples came back 5 miles northeast, 13.3 milligrams per kilogram. I'll just read the numbers. They're all milligrams per kilogram dry weight. 2 miles, 4.01. 2 miles south, 3.07. 5 miles south, 1.79. Doesn't sound too bad. Tolerable limits, 40. Then you go to the grass samples. 5 miles south, 246 milligrams per kilogram is in the grass. 2 miles south, 338 milligrams per kilogram dry weight. 2 miles northeast, grass, 182 milligrams per kilogram. And here's the killer one, literally. Sample number 1, grass, the grass dry weight, 5 miles northeast, was 1,910 milligrams per kilogram. That's 48 times the allowable limit that cattle can use. He said there were no cattle anywhere because it deteriorates their bones, their teeth, they can't grow, the calves can't grow correctly. And what they're telling me is the allowable limits that are being put on the Inola smelter are greater than the allowable limits on the Kentucky Inola smelter, or the Kentucky smelter. So that's something that, yes, we need to fight that. We need to try to protect the citizens. There's better ways, even if they build it, there's better ways to filter that. There's better ways to do that, but it costs more money. And then on top of that, it's a foreign-owned company. They're getting $255 million in corporate welfare. Why? Why? They're spending billions of dollars to build this facility, talking about the great things that they're going to do. I don't know if anybody saw the letter that when the town of Inola decided to put it on the agenda to do a moratorium, a possible moratorium on anything, and they did it on anything industrial, any kind of industrial project. But when they put that on the agenda, that company sent them a letter telling them how great and wonderful that smelter is going to be for their community, how great and wonderful it's going to be for the economy, how great, and there's no doubt it's going to bring money into the economy. It's going to bring people in. It's going to triple, or it's going to increase the size. Inola's population is 1,800, 1,900, and then you're going to bring 1,000 workers in just to one facility, and then more and more and more. Town of Inola is going to grow. There's no doubt. With the industrial complex that's going in out there, they're going to grow. But there needs to be a little bit better government oversight on that to protect the citizens of Inola and to protect the citizens. Because if that is, he said, whenever he did this sample, he goes, I wish I'd have went 10 and 20 miles out. Now you're getting into District 9. And that's south of here. Does the wind ever blow out of the south? Absolutely. So how much of that is going to blow into Claremore? How much of that is going to blow into Owasso, Collinsville area? How much of that is going to blow into Verdigris? So it's something that we really need to keep our eyes on and make sure that they're doing this the right way. But like I was saying, when they sent that letter to the town of Inola saying that how great and wonderful it was going to be for their community, they ended that letter with And if you do go through with this, we're going to sue you for millions of dollars. You're going to have to raise your property taxes. You're going to have to raise your sales taxes, your fuel taxes. You're going to have to increase every tax, and all your citizens in that small community are going to have to pay us millions of dollars. That company is not out for the betterment of the community of Inola. That's right. They are not. That company is out for themselves. It's a foreign-owned company, majority foreign-owned company, and there's some companies in the United States that would love to build a smelter, I would think. Why aren't they being recruited in to try to build these things? If we need, and I'm all for economic development. I'm all for that being done, but it's got to be done correctly, and it's got to be done with the safety in mind of the community and the citizens around there. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox. I know you guys want to ask some questions, so I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me, and we'll continue on right here, I guess. All right, thank you. Oh,
Well, first of all, I want to say, as I observe these 6 individuals who've come up here tonight to talk to us and represent us, it takes a lot of courage today, and a lot of oomph, and a lot of getting up early in the morning, and a lot of taking care of a lot of chores so that you can get out and knock on doors. How much don't you appreciate these people for doing this to represent us? I really do. I couldn't help but listen to Crystal here talking about the data centers and water. The water's being passed out. That's a key word right now. I kind of have a prediction. I think the wars in the future, if data centers continue to grow and take over with the millions of gallons that they need to deal with and water evaporation, I basically can see the day when there'll be lots of wars on the planet just for water, just to try to steal water from another country. The Rothschild family came out 3 years ago, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it's connected to all of this. They said water's not guaranteed for everyone. That was just an independent statement. They've been in the planning on this for a long time. So I want to start this question and answer time off. I want to make the best time usage of it. I thought I'd ask one question myself. We have a set of microphones over here. Brian, can we still use those? Okay. And if you have a question after I ask one, I'm going to turn this loose, and I'm going to ask we're going to ask, for example, I'm going to ask the people running for the House to answer a question that I have a specific question for them. And then we have a specific question for the commissioner candidates that we want to ask them. And then we'll have some other questions for superintendent, for schools, as well as insurance. All of these positions are vital to us, aren't they? They're very vital. They're very important. And I would tell you that they're all critical. They're all important. But we shouldn't say, well, this one's much more important than the others, because it all fits together to make our economy, to make our society run the way that it was designed. Okay, so let's try this, and we'll kind of wing it here, and we'll move the microphone out so whoever can address this will be able to do. We have to handle both of these mics at the same time, because one's being used to record, that's going to go on, it'll go on the internet, and the other one is just for future use. And the one here, the big one, is for our use so you can hear easily. For our people, the 2 people that are running for the House, I want to ask this question. Because as I said earlier, I've sensed going around this part of the state and this part of the country, even up into Missouri, where I grew up, and traveled to California and to Kansas and such. I see a lot of angry people. I see people that are very upset. I see things happening that I don't like to see. And I think it's because they sense that they're losing control. And for our people that are running, the 2 here that are running tonight for the House of Representatives, I just want to ask this question. Are you willing to commit, if you're in the House, to write and to forward legislation forward to be heard on the floor and to possibly be passed that would deal with the tax incentive district, the TIDs, that are related to, for example, data centers. To make sure that this goes to the vote of the people in the county and not just have some city manager someplace or some non-elected person to make this decision behind a hidden non-disclosure agreement for 2 or 3 years, and people don't have a chance to even decide on that. Are you willing to make that a vote of the people, given the fact that there's such demand on the water and the electricity, and those things are going to go up in price? So I guess my question to these two that are running for House, are you willing to say something about that and where you stand on that? Are you willing to write legislation for that and push that forward, if you could? Let's pass the microphone down there, the stand and everything, so they can address that.
I thought it was ladies first.
Oh, well, I just sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
No, I can't say yes or no because I don't know. I'm not a legislator. I haven't been in there yet. I haven't memorized the state constitution and how that process works. But if there's a way to prevent and shut down a lot of the corporate welfare, then yes, I'm absolutely for that. Now, I understand also that sometimes you've got to give some incentives for those companies to come to your state. We're not talking just data centers, not just talking, smelters and stuff. I'm talking, an auto, if one of the auto industries wanted to come in and build a car manufacturing facility or something and provide real legitimate jobs, some kind of manufacturing facility, I know a lot of states, they vie for that. And I've seen that at the, from the county commissioner level all the way up to the state level, as far as them trying to incentivize them to come in. But it's a long game to play that, to get those tax dollars in and get those jobs in for the community. This thing keeps sinking, I think. But as far as the data centers and foreign-owned companies, I think when a foreign-owned company, if they're especially an adversarial foreign-owned company owning property in our state, one, that shouldn't be allowed. That we should get that land back. But if they're bringing these companies in, why are we giving adversarial countries a break on our, with our tax dollars? We shouldn't be doing that. So it would be a little bit more, I think, there's a little bit more to it than just a yes or no, but it definitely needs some change to how that process works, and to cut down on a lot of that corporate welfare. We definitely need to cut down on a lot of that corporate welfare. So anyway.
Watch out, that thing gets a little droopy.
That's all right. I'm short. I'm used to it. I'm going to address the first part of that question with anger. I think the reason why we're so angry as Americans is that we slowly let them take control, because it was easy to have that. If you'll notice that video, they did such a great job. When you tax, you end up taking from both. Our job as humanity, and I kind of alluded to it when I was speaking, if we've had this discussion, your tax dollars, what are those tax dollars are supposed to do is to help your fellow man. Whose job really is that? I hate to tell you, that's ours. Our job is to take care of fellow man. You know why we have DHS? We gave DHS to take care of our kids, to take care of, we gave that to the state. That's our job.
That's right.
So the more that we give in to the state, and then we're mad the state doesn't do what we want them to, I hate to tell you, it's that whole adage that we said as a kid, I'm pointing at you, but I got 4 fingers pointing right back at me. We've got to do a better job at taking ownership of ourselves and our families and our communities. Our nonprofits do a much better job than our government does. And I think that's the reason why you're seeing so many angry people, is because they didn't realize they were giving away so much of their power and their authority because it was easier to let somebody else deal with the issue than us deal with it ourselves. And we got to take that back to the point where the government doesn't need that tax dollar. Education is a big thing, and I hear a lot about property tax and how they want to get rid of property tax. We've created the beast that we're having to deal with education. And I hate to say this, but I think we've made it free for so long. People have taken advantage of the fact that they get to go to school and they get to have a free education. We have third world countries that would give anything in the world for what we have in America. Anything in the world for what we have. And I hope we don't take that for granted much longer. And I hope we appreciate that. The second part, that is the reason why those TIF and TIDs, a lot of what comes from that and those negotiations, because I'm a developer on the other side of my world, I've been through the process in Claremore. It is not easy. I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, not with the current people, mostly with the other. There's been a point in time where we've been told through the grapevine, we will never build anything because the people didn't like us. Yeah, we've had that happen. I won't say that about the current people. We've had a good relationship with everybody there. I understand economic development because I've had to deal with it. I will say this. Part of the reason why I wanted to focus on infrastructure is that's where most of that goes. Now, the state has done some things where it's benchmark. If they don't invest so much, so in other words, if the company coming in doesn't give so much, they don't get a break. They don't get that. That's a big protection on your tax dollars. That is, they've restructured that. Used to, it was like, here's a bucket of money. They didn't have to make any kind of demands. They could walk away, and then it was just free. And I know you probably saw a lot of that, and it has changed. So if they don't invest, if they don't buy the land, if they don't get it, they don't come in and take care of it and put that dollar down first, they get no incentive. But again, the disgruntledness by how they're handling TIF and TID districts usually comes back around to water and electric and all that infrastructure. We need to address that issue. There are some communities that can't afford, so it goes back to the issue of how we handle electric. Is usually the energy comes from the community, or from, like, you'll say GRDA, VVEC, East Central Electric, or co-ops. They usually are their own functioning business. They sell it to a city, and the city sells it to them, or you buy directly like PSO. Obama did this really great thing where he got rid of all of our coal producing plants, and there went out a lot of reliability. That is a heavy dose of sarcasm, people. That is a horrible piece of legislation that he did and put on our energy producers. It made it unreliable because wind doesn't always blow all the time, even though it feels like it, and the sun doesn't always shine. So I go back to the fact that we need to address and have a good plan. I say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. We have communities, so water's the biggest issue. Rural water districts don't have the money to really take care of that. We have massive water loss. I honestly think when it comes to data centers, it's going to be blip it. 5 years, the discussion. How many have already heard that Elon Musk wants to put them on low orbit satellites? That's a reality. They are going to make that happen. They don't have to worry about some of the temperature things. So what I think will happen is whoever makes it in this first little blip it, this first few years, those will be the only ones that make it. After that, I think it'll be kind of a dying breed, and it won't be anything that will come back. I think it'll be done. We're already seeing some of that. I don't know if it's because of backlash, but there's fewer. My biggest question when it first came out is why we have so many of them proposed. That's a big red flag to me. But yes, as far as taxes, we should know what we're doing with our tax dollars. I think that's a huge responsibility. I understand economic development, but that's the reason why I wanted to cut. I love analogies, but cut the snake off the head there, or the head off the snake. The problem is infrastructure. So if we can figure out how we're going to grow as a state, then maybe we can do away with that argument. But again, it has to be very strategic in how we grow.
Okay, I guess my question would be for Kenny Brashears, since you're a resident of Rogers County, correct? would you be willing to sign the grand jury petition in light of the circumstances and issues that are going on in this county right now? It's not on, I'm sorry.
She's asking if he would be willing to sign the grand jury petition.
And if not, why?
Okay.
So this just came out. I'm trying to learn as much about that as I possibly can. I think it's a great thing that it's out and everybody needs to sign it if they want to sign it. I am not saying I'm going to sign it tonight. I'm not saying I'm not going to sign it. I need to read through it and see. I think it's a great thing that it's out there for everybody to sign it so we can see what's being transparent. But if you're asking me if I'm going to sign it tonight, I don't know. You're just asking if I will sign it at some point? Well, I got a lot of time to decide if I'm going to sign it or not. Yes, so I don't know yet. Okay.
All right, next question.
So it's to the two gentlemen who are running for. Are you running for the same district in?
These two are commissioners,
Yeah,
and then they're running for the
Yeah.
district nine.
but the commissioners is that the same district? So, are you willing to investigate everything there is to know about the smelter they are planning to put in Ainola?
So for me, both, the smelter does not fall in District 1. It falls in Ron Burroughs' district. So
Yeah.
as far as investigating it, we can't do that. We couldn't do that if we were elected.
So why I'm asking, it's because it will be total and utter devastation of Ainola, and it will never, we live 2 miles from it, from that lot, where they are also planning to put a data center. And I already feel, when I lay down on my bed in the night, I feel the vibrations from the paper factory. But what will happen with the candidate for Congress? You explained much of it, but it's such a devastation not just for Ainola, but for this whole part of Oklahoma. And I would say for whole Oklahoma, because it will affect money-wise whole Oklahoma. And it's just not 250 million. It's with federal money, it's about 2 billion that they have been promised. But our life in Ainola and all the surrounding communities, even in your district, will be all farming will be totally decimated. All homesteading will be totally decimated. We will not be able to sell our property. So it will have, so my question was, if you are willing to investigate everything there is to know about it.
Like I said, it's not in our district. We can't step on
I'm
another
trying to tell you
commissioner's
it's
feet.
affecting your district
I understand.
also.
It's not affecting it yet. So
It will be.
It can
Absolutely.
be. And the smelter is such out of the Oklahoma's hands. Yes, I would investigate it to what's up to my possibility, which is very
How
little.
it can be stopped.
So I know a lot of farmers, I know a lot of ranchers. I lease several hundred acres. I got a cow-calf operation. I don't want this around to pollute the grass, to pollute the ground. That's why I spoke about earlier, this board that I would like to see Rogers County put together, this EHS advisory board. And I just said that because that's what I'm on at work. That would be something that, even though the state of Oklahoma says, hey, this is the allowable limit, we can set our own standards in Rogers County that can exceed, it has to be better than what the state said, but we can make it low enough, and hopefully we could get something down low enough that if we couldn't stop this, we could at least say, no, your emissions have to be down here to where that doesn't affect anybody. It should never affect the producer
Yeah,
or
you
anybody.
are right, it should be lower, but it will never be a fit there. Our friends' farms are right next to it.
I wouldn't want it on my farm.
And in Finland, where I come from originally, they are doing feasibility study for one smelter in a new aluminum smelter. They are doing long feasibility studies, and they work with a Japanese company. This company tried to go to Finland. There must be a reason why they didn't.
Okay, thank you. I want to point out something just that hasn't really been put in these terms tonight, but when it comes to the data centers and the what the builders want to call not the windmills, but the solar. They want to call them solar farms, but they're really solar power plants. That's what they are. The three in Rogers County, which are there's two of them currently approved in process. One is pressing and is going to be. One's in Catoosa, one's in Oologah, and the other one is going to be in Chelsea. Those three combined take up 10,000 acres of land that's taken away from farming, from cattle, etc. And it can impact the area around it. Mays County, for example, I've looked at the statistics there. They have 9 of these power plants, solar power plants. 25,000 acres right now are impacted by that. That's a lot of land that's eaten up. So it's not just a choice of do we like it or not like it. We have to look at how it's affecting the whole economy of the state in a negative way. You have a question next, please. Oh, okay.
I'd like to ask candidate Campbell and Mr. Stokes, if I handed you this magazine on data centers, because I didn't expect the topic to come up, but I happen to have a copy of Patrick Wood's article on this technology. It goes back to 1934. They were thinking about at Columbia University. There's a history. So we've been first right off the get-go on how they were going to use the technology to control all of this. I mean, would you read it if I handed it to you? Okay. And I get you one. Yes?
Very good. Do you have another copy? He does. He's going to bring it to you.
Hopefully I made it clear. I will read and research and look at everything, and even from angles that aren't even clear. I went over, because I know Kentucky, that was one of the concerns, was health concerns from smelters. I took it away and didn't even add smelter in the topic of that. I wanted to see the health outcomes of Kentucky and kind of looked at that from a different, because I didn't want it to be skewed. There's a lot of information out there, so I love when people bring me things to read and to look at.
Okay, thanks. So let's go with the next. You want to borrow this mic?
Sure.
All right, my question has nothing to do with data centers or smelter. Praise the Lord. I think every one of these candidates are definitely going to do the right thing for this county. Okay, so I believe that. My question really is for you, JT. The question is, you're going to hear a lot from the other side. Let's just say liberal, progressive, those who are favor that side, about, Oklahoma is 50th in education or 48th in education, whatever it is. I'd like to know what you're going to try to do, because some of it is legislative, I understand that, but what you're doing in your office to try to improve that, and some of it could be a scoring thing. I know how it's scored, but what is your approach for that? And secondly, what are your key differences between you and your other opponent, Robert Franklin? Thank you.
I'm going to stand up because I like to stand up. But anyway, first of all, whoever gets in there, they're going to look pretty good because of the legislature. They've passed laws that allow that phonics is coming back. Phonics is coming back. Cursive, clap for that. That's good. Phonics is coming back. Cursive is coming back, and there is no more social promotion. What that means is, if you are not able to do, first grade math, they're not going to just promote you because it's the end of the year. You have to stay there until you can. There's no more social promotion. What that's going to happen is this. As soon as this happens, we teach in our school. We need to being able to read grade level at third grade. I think that is the stupidest thing we can do because we need to be doing first grade and start at first grade. And that's really what it is. And so for me, Lindelfield will be having the people do the phonics. And I know it can happen in first grade because of my own child. My daughter, she's going into third grade now. She's a young girl. We got them, my son and daughter, they were brother and sister. We got them when we were 1 and 2, fostering, and then we adopted them. My daughter, at her school, she reads after her first grade year, she reads at a 5th grade level. The reason she reads at a 5th grade level is because she was taught phonics, she was taught cursive in her school, and she actually knows how to read the Declaration of Independence in Thomas Jefferson's original cursive writing. Now, she needs to work on her penmanship, okay? But she needs to work on her penmanship. So that's what's going to be happening. So that is taking place this fall, that is happening. My task is to make sure those things get implemented and get done. I also believe that we need to go deal with the issue of math. Our kids, I'm old school. We had to memorize the math multiplication table. And so we memorized that. That's good. I'm telling you why this is important. You go to a convenience store, you go buy something, and they can't count back change. Now, if you really want to mess with their head, give them $1 so you get back a 5. They have a conniption fit. They have no idea what's going on. That is a tragedy of what's happening in our school. That's a tragedy. So those things need to be changed, and those are things that will be changed as we go along. That's going to be a good thing. So we're going to be doing that. We're going to be pushing that. We're going to also be giving our teachers. One of the things that I want to do also is make sure that we have additional teacher assistants in the classroom. And there actually is money available to do that in the different ones, especially for first through 4th grade. There is money available that is not having to go to the taxpayers, you and I, asking for money. And so that's money that we can put in there. We can utilize that because those kids need to have a fighting chance. The second part of the question is about my opponent. I'll say this. I am Oklahoma GOP certified. He is not. I am a lifelong Republican. First president I got to vote for was Ronald Reagan. I did that with a great deal of honor. And so I am a lifelong Republican. One of the things, we had a debate that was televised. And in this televised debate, they asked us to bring a book. And the book I bring is the book I bring to everywhere I've gone. And it's entitled, It's Biblical, Not Political. It's a very good book, very good book. Unfortunately, I'm the one who wrote it, so that sounds self-serving. But even if I wasn't the author of the book, it is a very good book. It deals with the front pages of the newspapers. It deals with the stuff I say about education. I wrote this in 2015. I wasn't even considering running for office at that time. Not even a thought in my mind. And the things that I wrote about there then are exactly the same things that I talk about in education. I haven't changed because that's who I am. Now, the other thing is, with the book that he brought 3. Book that he brought was a book that was entitled, he held it up, it's called Separation of Church and Hate. Okay? Title alone gives you a little information. You don't have to do much research. But if you read it, it's even worse. Some people have started reading this and I can't even get to it. But here's what the book deals with. All you have to do is Google it, and it'll tell you everything you need to know. It says that everything that Christians have been teaching you about the LGBTQ plus community, that every Christian has it wrong, and that this author is the sole expert on how this works. This author suggests that when you read the Apostle Paul's writings, Paul would have supported gender reassignment surgery. Okay, no, I'm serious. You can't make this up. So now, as a pastor, I have read Paul's writings a whole lot of times, and I've never left that reading Paul's writings says, oh, well, that's what Paul was talking about. I mean, so that is, a lot of times when we go to the poll, I know for me, I'm speaking for myself, I plug my nose and I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. In our race, it's night and day. It's light and dark. Folks, we are in spiritual warfare. And if you do not recognize spiritual warfare, we're going to just get caught up in it still. There is a spiritual battle going on, and this battle is for the soul of our children. Yes. And this is why this is important, that we understand that there is a difference in who is going to be elected and who's not going to be elected. The status quo will not change if my opponent is elected. I have plans on making some major changes because we've got to change things. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that's what we are. We are insane. And so that's got to change. So thank you for that question. And that's kind of that's just one of many things how we are different. But that's enough to let people know, hey, what's going on here? And in fact, he was asked about that book, and he said, well, how do you put it? Lapse of judgment, somebody said? It's just poor judgment. Well, at the debate, he says, well, this book was next to my wife's nightstand, and so we grabbed that. So I'm like, that's not poor judgment. That's not poor judgment. That's a standard by which he thinks is going to happen. That's what he will push. That's the very books that we are trying to get out of our schools. Okay? So that's, I'm sorry, I'm starting to preach, but I'll stop.
Hey, we can have a new chairman up here. You can get rid of me, hire him. That's great. I love that. I've been telling these folks for 3 years here, there's nothing about politics involved in what we do. It's a spiritual war that we're in. It's right versus wrong, and that's what we've got to watch. Next question. Here, take this mic.
Okay.
And make it loud and speak to both of you.
This is a tough one because I actually have questions that I could ask each race. So as I was standing up here, I had to decide, okay, which question am I going to ask? No. But I'm going to go with the question for the insurance commissioner candidates. Because okay, and this may not apply to some people. I'll just ask a question. Okay, I was self-employed for most of my life. The biggest part of that, almost a quarter of a century, as a master farrier, a horseshoer. And when you start talking about self-employment insurance, it gets real expensive. Of course, obviously, my occupation, a little hazardous at times, didn't help. But with God's blessing, I was never injured. But I'm just saying, and I've been retired for a good while now, but also my husband and I ran a cow-calf operation on a couple hundred acres in Delaware County. But so the same thing as far as self-employment, health insurance or accident. My question is, because it may have changed, I've been retired for a little while, so is there still no competition across state lines? In other words, what I was paying for insurance here in Oklahoma, I could have gotten it because I have 2 siblings in Arizona, and I could have got it for 60% less. And so has that ever been opened up yet where it can be competition across state lines? That's my question.
There are certain parts of Oklahoma, those that are close to the border of Texas, for example, that they will allow you to go over, like the Amarillo or whatever. But living in Oklahoma and being able to take off to Arizona to find a cheaper insurance and have the coverage, that has not been allowed. One of the biggest two things that we need to make sure that we do in Oklahoma to try to help us lower our health insurance. If I'm fortunate enough to get there, one of the first things we want to do is to go in and look at all of the mandates that have been placed on the health insurance companies to cover more and more and more and more. And that's not any different than you going out and contracting, to build a house or do a remodel. And here was the original price, but so far down the road, you say, yeah, is there any way that you could add another window here or another door there or make me a porch here? Every time you do that, you add cost. And that's what's happened to health insurance. It's not the only thing. The next biggest thing is we have to have more competition. Blue Cross Blue Shield has about, I'm going to say, close to 90% of the market. And the other thing with that is that the competitors that are competing against them want to isolate their markets around Tulsa and Oklahoma City. We've got to find a way to get them to venture out into other areas of the state to where that they become a competitor. And generally speaking, competitors will, when there's competition, then price is adjusted generally. Same thing on the homeowner side or the auto side. But the biggest thing that we can do in insurance of any kind is the litigious environment that we're living in Oklahoma. When we start changing that, and the example I think I gave you a while ago about the $3.4 billion for USAA, that number allows USAA, again, one company out of all the companies in Florida, that allows them to look at that balance sheet and say, okay, the rule changed, so we had 150 or we had 250 lawsuits that fell into this category, and here was our cost. So next year, we know that we're not going to have any more lawsuits that come from that particular area. So automatically they can start figuring that into their premium base because the exposure or the risk is no longer there. Those are just a couple of things that I would tell you. And I want to open up the conversation with companies about crossing those lines within a certain margin. So if I'm bordering Arkansas and Louisiana, Texas, why is it that you can't go across that line a certain distance and use a hospital in Sherman, Texas versus one in Idabel, Oklahoma, or vice versa?
Thank you. So I have a question for Marty for insurance, but I do want to point something out. My boss, JT, won't say that his opponent in 2023 was a registered Democrat. He also donated to Joy Hoffmeister. He's too nice. But my question for you, Marty, so as a young adult male that's 20 years old, insurance companies are often, I guess you could label it as sexist towards young adult males. Insurance rates are much higher. How do we combat that in the state of Oklahoma?
You're talking to the wrong dude on that one. You're talking to the guy that in the first 7 months that he drove, he totaled out the family car and a pickup. So you're not going to get any sympathy out of me on that, Lane. No, and Lane, it's we're going to look at everything to try to drive down costs, not just for young people, but reality is that sector of the population that falls between 16 and 21 cause about 1/4 of all the accidents. So when you're adjusting price, you've got to load that up a little bit. But there's things that you can do. All kinds of safe driving courses, defensive driving courses that you can do. Not get any tickets. I mean, I didn't have a good track record at all. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't sympathize with you because they never made a dime off of me. It was not until later on that I decided I didn't want to die in a vehicle that I started straightening up. But that's the gist of it. We will look at all areas to try to lower the cost of insurance. There's a big push now for, anybody heard the term credit scoring or tiered rating, any of those type of things? There's a big push to get rid of that, but in its simplest form, you take a credit score of say 600, you take a credit score of 825. Well, as you divide those 6 categories up, in almost every single case, every single year, and remember, credit scoring is only one piece of it. They put a lot of other things in there with it, whether that's tickets, accidents, age, and it is, I don't like to use the word sexist, but insurance is one of those areas that you look at females in 16 and 21, and here's how much exposure you have with them on an average basis. Here's 16 to 21 males and here's how much exposure you have with them. But using the tiered rating as an example, almost without fail, a person that has bad credit scores always have a higher loss ratio. Now there's no way that they would be able to justify it year after year after year after year if you couldn't prove that. So I will work with you to make sure we get your scores lower if you'll drive better.
So, as a taxpayer, I'm going to talk about what we pay in property taxes and why are we paying for failure. And it hits every one of y'all because our schools have failed us. As a parent, I didn't pay for failure. Our kids are failing, the schools are failing, the taxpayers. That money that we all pay for property taxes, some of that should be going to our roads and bridges. We've got some of the worst roads and bridges in the country. And think of all the money that we have wasted in property taxes, just giving it to the schools. Where I live, and you know this, because I've said it at the Rogers County GOP, we get nothing for our roads where I live, and they're crumbling, and if you have to correct, you are in a ditch and you have just ruined your car, so the insurance is going to come into effect. We've got commissioners, my commissioner, I don't think he's ever been on our roads where I live, and I'm in Rogers County, but Owasso and the Tulsa County Commissioner does a really good job, but once you hit Rogers County, it's the pits. So, how can we fix all this?
Report it. Bang on their door. Tell them that you have a problem with your road. I would encourage you, please report it, because a lot of times they don't know. I actually heard this, that if they were able to, and then if they don't, then you can kind of continue banging on their door until they. Recently, I will get this acronym wrong. It's CIRB. It is. We have gone way up in how much where we are as far as the reliability of our roads and bridges. Those, I think I mentioned the CED meetings, the Circuit Engineering District meetings. There are 8 or 9 circuits. I go to 1 and 2. Circuit Engineering District 1 comprises of about 8 or 9 counties. So I get a good bang for my buck as a field rep. I get to meet a lot of county commissioners and kind of talk to them. So they do where they use their resources and pull together, and that's where they're able to do a lot more with it. Rogers County, this is going to be hard to believe, we're doing a lot better than Nowata County. If you want to talk about impoverished county that can barely make anything happen, Nowata County is barely scraping by. So they are able to pull themselves to pull that group together. They kind of okay, we'll help you with this, you help me with that, and they share resources. It's a fantastic way. I know I harp a lot about water, but it's something I'd like to see done with water. As far as bang for buck on education, I go back to we don't know why. My kids, like I said, at 5, all of them learned how to use a ruler. None of them learned how to use a measuring tape. If you tell me, here's a measuring tape, and I want you to go hang that picture on the wall, I'm going to clue in on why I learned those fractions and how to use that measuring tape. If you hand me a ruler, I'm going to go, well, I can tell you it's about 12 inches from here to here. So connecting that dot and telling our kids why, it goes back to what I said with, if you're spending a few hours on the football field and you're practicing, you're practicing for a championship. But I don't think we've really told our kids why they're learning what they're learning. And for me, if you're just going to sit there and tell me all this stuff, handed me this, I know exactly why I'm reading this. But if you hand me something and I don't know why I'm getting it, it's probably going to go in and out in 1 year. I think we need to do a better job of explaining why we are educating and what that purpose, because they're spending a lot of time with that school teacher that they're not spending with the parents. And I want to know why those things are being taught. So hopefully, we do need to understand. So the other thing kind of has nothing to do with what Marty really has to deal with, but our county jails, the amount of lawsuits that our county jails have had to go through. There is one county in particular, by the time that lawsuit is finally done, they will pay $55 million for a jail, they said it was a wrongful death. Most of the lawsuits that our jails are facing are because somebody snuck in some fentanyl, they had an overdose, and because we do not have the ability to staff our jails because we aren't able to pay them very well, we have a lot of overdoses, and that is a high liability, and you can't insure those jails, and that is another issue. So I think of the ad valorem property tax, and you guys might know this number, I think it's like 65 or 70% of it goes to education. There's also rules and regulations about what they can spend that money on. So there's that. We're also constitutionally bound in Oklahoma for public education and providing that. So we've got some things we need to work on.
How do you change that?
Well, for the you can't even change. Yeah, it is a constitution. So we're up for a constitutional convention, which means we're due for one, which is where we take a hard look at our constitution, our state constitution, and that's when we can make it, because we're bound to it.
One of the things that she touched on right at the end with cities, with counties, and some of those settlements that we're looking at, the same thing is happening in schools. We've had situations where teachers, whoever, you have a situation with kids and it gets covered up and wind up being a lawsuit and $12 million or $23 million or whatever gets paid out. One situation had to let go 13 teachers. 13 teachers had to be let go to make up some of the funds to pay for the settlement. That wasn't enough to cover it. So it goes back to the counties. And especially with municipal leagues and stuff like that, some of these jail lawsuits again, that's part of the reform that has to happen. But even with reform, there's still large settlements that happen. So one of the things that I'm going to push if we get in there is what they call an alternative settlement fund, to where the counties and cities can go in and basically buy in to that, to where that we go in on the insurance side of it, and you're buying reinsurance, and it says, okay, we're going to cover the first certain percentage of it, and then after that the reinsurance will kick in. And what that does is that all of us as citizens don't get our property tax raised because of those things, and that is not right for property owners in Rogers County or in Oklahoma to have to assume the bill for something that they had nothing to do with. So we've got to look at alternative choices for that.
Why are we? It still bewilders me that we're rewarding people who willingly took drugs, and a lot of times where it's contraband that they have. There's no nice way that they put it in places they shouldn't. Pay for. And why are we paying for drug abuse for somebody that did a criminal act? But yeah.
So in Rogers County, property tax doesn't really pay for your roads. They passed a 1 cent sales tax, and that's yes, but the 1 cent sales tax, there's enough money to have really good roads in Rogers County, I promise. It's just not getting handled right. There's millions and millions of dollars that come in. It's really not. I worked there for years. I've seen it not done right. So, but your property tax does not pay for the road.
Well, listen, folks, we've run a long time tonight. You've had some great questions. I think all of these gentlemen and ladies up here, one lady, they deserve our hand applause.